Okay, when you have an expectation, right, and it doesn't meet reality, your expectation is different from reality, there's conflict.
Well, yeah.
Right? And in that conflict, you might find pain, you might feel disappointment. So is it possible to actually not have expectations?
I think it's important to have some expectations, though. That way you have a plan, and you know where you want to be going, you know, and you're not just kind of... Well, I guess there's nothing bad with not just kind of going along with things, but it's more security knowing where you want to go.
So it's security.
Yeah.
Safety, I believe, is present with knowledge.
Can you explain that a little?
If you know, you're safe. The more you know, the safer for you to be. If you don't know anything, because humans we fear what we do not know.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how we are. If we don't know, that's why we're scared of it. Why are we scared of the dark? Because we can't see. We don't know what's out there. There could be. Obviously, that's irrational, but that's what we think subconsciously. We don't know. So, by knowing, you take away that fear, and that's what brings you safety.
What's the effect of fear on your mind?
Can't sleep.
You can't sleep?
Like, when I watch a scary movie and I can't sleep. It depends on the movie though. It just depends. I can't sleep, I can't do certain things. I can't even stand up to go to the bathroom by myself. So I just like lay in my bed the whole night awake until I go to sleep.
The fear of not being loved. That one's a good one,
Yeah. Fear of not being loved. What's that do to you?
It lowers your self-esteem.
So why wouldn't you be loved? What's the thought there?
Like, I don't know, like in myself, I ask for a lot, so I can't find the person I really like. You know, like I have a big list of about like 60 things a guy has to have in order for me to like look in him a certain way, because I've been like through certain relationships that are just not good. So like I've been through specifically one that just like broke me, and so, it's kind of sad, but yeah.
Fear's a big motivator. I think for most people, and as I've acknowledged to myself, is fear and laziness are the two biggest motivators I've ever seen in myself or in most people. We're afraid of change, and so we stay the same. It motivates us to not change. Fear is something that I deal with a lot. Because of being involved with activism. Legally, I put myself in situations that, because in the United States, so much freedom of speech activism is under threat right now under the Patriot Act. There's a very real possibility of ending up in jail or prison due to any sort of resistance to the mainstream culture right now. So that's a fear. But fear of, again, continually living outside of the mainstream culture is a challenge and has a lot of fear. I try and live by a mantra that was passed on to me, which is, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Which is acknowledging the fact that I am afraid and then thinking about what would I do. And I try and live by that. I don't think we should be ruled by fear. I think we should acknowledge it all the time, that when it exists, and don't deny it, but to live in spite of it. And what Gandhi said was something to akin that courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting in spite of it. And that's what I try and live by. Yeah.
Maybe it's fear.
What forms does that fear take?
I mean, for me, in the end, it comes down to death. Like, that's where it ends. And because I have this kind of issue with, like, my physical mortality, that's, I think, why it feels, like, a little bit lonely.
Yeah.
So you live, what you live with all the time is like this kind of like undefined thing that you could never like, and that's why it's never get your head around it. Like,
But I was more trying to zoom into like the fear for death is not so much the fear for death, but it's actually the fear for not having that anymore. That your whole safety structure, how I make sense of my life. That's something I know. Oh, I suspect that safety structure doesn't function anymore there. At the end of that, so actually it's a fear of having to let go of that whole safety structure. I think it doesn't end by saying I'm afraid of death.
No.
One has to look further.
yeah.
So when I say I'm afraid, well, you don't know that, so you don't. So it's what is that? What is coming up? Not as a conclusion, but just what is the? There's a kind of tangible an emotional tangible thing, which is very present,
Mhm,
which has been given the name I'm afraid of death. And what is that, right?
And what is that?
What is that? And I would maybe suggest that it's in the area of that what we know of how we create security in our life. That is falling apart.
Okay, so when I talk about like the unknowability of death, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the experience of anxiety
Yeah.
that we live with all the time, and which could be attached to any number of things, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know, like, and when I say, like, what would that look like what would happen if, like, for some reason you could, like, get rid of that anxiety in some way, or, like, transform it in another way, so, like, Heidegger, for example, he won't, like, he thinks that's, like, that anxiety is, like, really important for us, like, it's one of the things that makes us human, but if you could have a really negative, like, reaction to that and say it's just, like, a kind of repressed Catholic or something. I mean, it's not a bad theory either way, but
Is that anxiety essential? I mean, do you feel it's a part of the fabric of who you are?
I think it would be really false to deny it, right? And it's precisely because of its unknowability. Like, if you had some kind of security about what it was, then you wouldn't have the anxiety. But because we can never know such a thing, like, I don't know how you could get rid of the anxiety. This has been an issue for me, like, since I was, like, 13, like, for a long time. And it doesn't, like, it's not necessarily to do with any particular person.
Yes.
Like, one of the things that I remember that is kind of submerged there, and it's like the same feeling. Like, I was 7, and like, their song Fame was kind of popular at the time, and I was with my family has an old cabin up in the mountains here. I was swinging on the swing, and I was like trying to sing like I'm gonna live forever, that part of the song, and realizing that it wasn't true, but wanting it to be true, incredibly so, and being so kind of freaked out about that, like about that, like I knew it wasn't true, but I wanted to make it true, and that kind of instability, that's the thing, like, I often jump to in my head when I'm saying, like, I'm afraid of death.
Gives meaning to your lives, what's deeply important to you.
We're just jumping right into it.
I mean, is that all you want to know? I mean, meaning or value, I'm not sure if it deals with in the instant, right, in that given time, or is meaning something that's appreciated over time. So if we think back on our lives, and, those moments that we don't remember, which is most of our lives, are those the moments without meaning? And is meaning therefore what persists over time? Or is sort of lying on a grassy field, feeling the sunlight on your body, right, and the slight breeze over you,
right,
something that you might not remember? I mean, does that have meaning, right?
Yeah.
Or does it have to persist? Right? I mean, is meaning sort of instantaneous? I love, I'm an avid dancer, so I do a lot of dancing.
Yeah.
I do bicycle riding, right? These are the sort of things that I enjoy, and you can say that they provide meaning. They really just provide happiness, right? They sort of provide a stable environment where I can go and do something that I enjoy. But you know, whether that's valuable for me, right? It's valuable for my mental health and getting through the days and whatnot. I'm not sure. I mean, it's meaningful for me, right? So there's a meaning on sort of the individual level.
There's also other ways of looking at it, like sort of thinking, you know, like what does emotion actually do in your body? Like it actually maps directly onto like your hands and your arms and your shoulders. So if you're on a hike and you know, I mean, this happened to me when I was in India. I was on a hike, and you know, this giant like pretty much giant lizard came, you know, fell from the tree right in front of me. And this, you know, you get the startle emotion, right? And it maps right onto your shoulders. It literally pulls you back. It was as if someone, you know, grabbed my shoulders and yanked me back. It's just emotion, routine emotion, that if you pay a little more attention to, you realize sort of is a sort of basic action. It's cueing something that your body should do. And like that design in humans is unbelievable, because it means that like before you've done the action, you've had some like representation in your body of it. So emotion would have been like a major like sort of design feature that is meant to be like directly meaningful, directly like, do I go in this route or this route? Do I try to jump the gap or do I not jump the gap?
Is that then we equate meaning with feeling good or feeling happy? Is that, that's good enough, but is that how we equate meaning?
Right, so I mean that's where it gets really complex, right?
Yeah.
Because like there have been many people in history who felt like a positive, you know, rush of emotion for doing really awful things, right?
Yes,
Right.
So it's not so clear as saying you know, the positive emotion is the meaning, right?
Yeah.
But I mean there is some interaction between like your social context, you know, the norms that you grew up. It's like you know, the relation between emotion and your role in society is like, you know, and the actions that you do is you know, there's something deeper in there that I think we pretty much know very little about.
Like for instance, if you look at emotion research, there's nothing in that research that describes what an emotion feels like. No, it's the primary data.
It's hilarious.
It's the primary data. It's like the emotion is, you know, a specific, it expresses itself in a very specific way in the body, right? It's a rich expression, right? We all know it, right? There's nothing in the entire corpus, massive, thousands of books on emotion, that says anything about it, right?
Why is that? How do you explain that?
Well, people have this sort of idea that, you see, within science, there is the tacit acknowledgement that there is something incoherent in the mind. And what I mean by that is that the scientific method is basically designed to sort of work around the tendency of the mind to distort evidence.
Right.
Right? So the heart of the scientific mind, right, the heart of the scientific method, is the assumption that there is some distorting factor in the mind.
And that's why objective, repeatable results.
Right.
Yeah, that's why the sort of hunger for objectivity and, you know, verified results. You know, like
It's not just me.
It's not just me, right? It's not just something I'm thinking, right? But the way science has tried to deal with it is, yeah, we've got to have a method to work around it. We don't really know what the incoherence is. We're not gonna, you know, we don't know how to deal with the real source of the incoherence, right? Which is something about the way our minds are operating, right? But we're going to create a method that kind of works around it. So we're still going to be incoherent. Everyone knows, right? The scientists, they're not objective. They're biased. They favor their own theories. They're worried about their own promotions. You know, they're selfish. They're competitive, venal, whatever, right?
They're also human.
Yeah. Right, this sort of thing, right? So essentially, the incoherence isn't dealt with, but the idea is that the method will correct for it, right? If you put it that way, it's not very plausible, right?
Psychological freedom. Oh, I think of
That's a good question.
Psychological freedom.
Psychological freedom, Amanda. I never heard that term before.
I don't know.
That's a tough one. I don't know.
Not much.
Not much.
Oh, okay, cool. Psychological freedom.
Crazy.